Hey everyone and welcome back to another video. So, beta is pretty much a thing now, right? And I think it's about time to talk about generally what's exciting and what is a bit worrying. And this is my video on, well, not my worries. This is the one about why I'm actually excited for the expansion. But it's important that you know that, I am excited. That's why I'm doing this video first, right? And that's actually the reason why I'm worried about the things I'm going to talk about in the other video, as opposed to just being apathetic about them, right? That's kind of the point. There's enough cool shit going on here with this expansion where it's actually worth to me being pretty invested in it, like actually caring a lot. That's why I'm worried about those things. So today we're going to be talking about the good stuff, right? The stuff that's actually worth being excited about. And of course that is, my own opinions and also that of the team, because we have all been playing Alpha for, well, quite some time now. First though, there is a profound question that I must ask you. Have you ever eaten food so good that all of your clothes were blasted off your body and you were transported into a pseudo-sexual dream sequence? I bet not, and that's why you need to check out Food Wars on today's sponsor, Crunchyroll, and check it out with a free 14-day trial. Food Wars is completely over the top and completely absurd, and it is a real punishment to watch if you, like me, are trying to be on a diet. It's incredible. Plus, now is the time to get stuck in because Season 5 is just kicking off. So yes, Food Wars is a shonen cooking anime that slips in some serious cooking knowledge. It is so much fun. Give it a watch with a 14-day free trial at crunchyroll.com/Bellular. And all the episodes, they're professionally subtitled. They're available on nearly every device, and they also offer new shows available about an hour after they first air on Japanese TV. My cooking is not quite as good as our protagonists, but hey, maybe someday it will be. Big thanks to Crunchyroll for sponsoring, and with that, let's get stuck in. Number one, we've got Prepatch. Now, this is a funny one because we basically haven't seen anything of it, and this is why it's going to be a quick point, but I figured we should sort of start from the beginning. From the Prepatch, all we really know is that it's Wrath of the Lich King inspired, and that they're basically calling it Scourge Invasion 2.0 internally. That's what Ian said to me, and you know what? That fundamentally just has me excited, because, we've not really seen one like that in a long time. If you think about Legion, that was, it was event-based, which was really cool, but it wasn't as, systemic, right, as the Scourge Invasion idea. So if we're getting that as opposed to a more of a, a sort of a linear fix thing like BFA, then I think that's actually really exciting and something I'm genuinely looking forward to. So Prepatch, that's a first little bright spot, but with that said, let's actually get into, the actual expansion content itself. And I'm going to kick it off with new player experience. Now, this is really important. I have seen what it is like trying to get new people to join WoW, right? Like, my friends, they know what I do for a job. Sometimes they're going to be like, should probably see what that thing's all about that he does for so often. And a lot of the time, it's a bit of a rough experience. And it's not that people hop into the game and then bounce off it. It's just they sort of get ping-ponged around the place, don't really know what they're doing, and find it hard to really just get stuck into the groove for a long period of time. Like many of us, did, right? When we were first leveling up a character, where there's pretty much, you were just going through a zone. It was decently slow, but there was really nothing that could just pull you away from it because you were just so invested and ingrained. But the modern sort of new player experience is just so fragmented and all over the place that it doesn't really work for those people. And in the next expansion, in Shadowlands, Exile's Reach really does improve that. It teaches way more class mechanics, does a good job of characterizing both the factions, so that's really cool. And once you're done that at level 10, you then go into the BFA zones. Now, yeah, the BFA zones, to me, they're not the best leveling experience ever, and the story is a little bit weird there, but what it does actually mean is the new players get a fully modern leveling experience, right, on their first character. I think that is actually a super important thing. And then you pair that with them having better character customization at the start. Overall, I think the impression that new people playing the game are actually going to receive when they play it after Shadowlands comes out, I think it's going to be so much better than it currently is. And does that matter to you and me directly? No, we already have max level characters, but what if one of our friends wants to level up, join our guild, join our raid team? Well, that's a lot harder today than I think it will be in the future, because those people have a better experience, and trust me, that will be really key to the long-term health of this game, as Warcraft really does just sort of go into the unknown, right? Because we kind of burnt through Warcraft 3. We don't really know where we're going. It's all this crazy cosmic stuff. The current WoW team has got to work out its identity and its direction, and I think doing that on the strong foundations of a good new player experience is core, and they're not perfectly there yet, but they sure as hell are a lot closer to a great new player experience after Shadowlands than they are right now, and that's really good. The next something similar to that actually is going to be great for us, so experienced players, and that is the leveling revamp. Seriously, it feels great. I'm going to go through this super quick, but basically, your leveling up is way faster. It is way less fragmented as an experience because you can just choose a continent, do the whole continent, bam, it'll get you up to the Shadowlands leveling stuff, right? From 10 to 50 or whatever. It is a way better experience. You don't need heirlooms. I hope that they have some sort of nice bonus to the heirlooms so people feel like their gold was, well invested, but you don't need the heirlooms anymore. It's a great leveling experience, and it means that you can, level up a character on every single continent. So even for a new player, that's like 6 or 7 or whatever, unique leveling experiences that they can have. That, again, is really good for the health of the game, and it's just a way better leveling flow than what we've got right now, which, considering this is another expansion, a bit like Legion, that I think will be pretty darn good for alts, I think it's just sort of all perfectly coming together there. So, new player experience and leveling, and then, of course, over those levels, well, because of the unpruning, right, you're getting more goodies, right? Your class is actually growing a bit more as you're doing the levels. So, basically, right, my point here is the new player experience is better, the leveling experience is better. Do you know what these things are? They're the bread and butter. They're the foundations, right? They're super core to the long-term health of WoW, and they're actually things that Blizzard have finally taken a real earnest effort at, to improve, and they basically have succeeded, I think. So, those are two things that I'm really excited about. Then next, as we move on to the endgame stuff, we've got the Renown system, and this, I think, is so cool. Now, Renown is basically a replacement of Artifact Power, and the way that it actually works is you basically get 2 weeklies, right, in your Order Hall, in your Covenant Sanctum. You do your 2 weeklies, and there you go. Your Renown is going to be full for that week. Now, there is alt catch-up built into the system where you can just do more activities to catch up if you are behind. And then there's some extra resources like anima and souls that you can basically farm up if you want and put into non-essential upgrades if you want. Point here is you're not going to be running, Mauve souls, right? Like runs to get your AP up so that you're stronger, like people did in Legion and I guess in BFA with the Island Expeditions as well. So it's just a way better system. It's also pretty cool that Pathfinder's built in, so you're just going to get Pathfinder for doing stuff you want to do anyway on your character. And with this, there's just a lot more flexibility, like there's like one of the dailies you can do as a dungeon or as world content, basically. That's way nicer, way more flexible. So basically, okay, this Renown system, I think, is going to fulfill the goal of I log in my character and it's like, yeah, cool, I've got this bit of progression to do. It is reasonable, it is attainable, and it actually gives me enough free time to pursue other things in the game, so I don't feel shackled to it. I think it's actually going to succeed in that, whereas I think AP had a far more complicated relationship where Blizzard basically just balanced it via diminishing returns, which of course is something that always just dared players to be inefficient for the sake of a tiny bit more gain. And even if it didn't make complete logical sense to do that, well, there's times where it could be an emotionally tricky situation. It's something Blizzard have admitted, and it's just nice to see that the next version of a system like that is way better conceived. So that is another thing that I'm a bit more excited about, and I think about, say, Miss Pandari. I was logging into my alt. What was I doing? I was capping their VP for the week. Now, this is a slightly different thing, but it kind of feels like that. If I have 4 characters, yeah, I probably will want to, go just progress all of them there a little bit for that week. I think this will be a pretty reasonable system. And I suppose on that, we should probably talk about alt friendliness. That's another thing I'm really excited about because they kind of messed it up in BFA. So, as an example, right, you can work on, if you're leveling up an alt, okay, so you've already done the whole leveling flow once, you can do those the zones, right, in any order that you want, so that's pretty good. And the other nice thing is you can basically work on the covenant that you want to go with for that character as you're leveling, right? That's what they were talking about at BlizzCon. I think that is actually really good. So that's one nice account-wide thing. Then there's catch-up built into the Renown system, which I just mentioned. Then also your legendary effects. They're account-wide. That is so good. After the whole account-wide essences debacle, they've just said, yeah, legendary effects, just they're account-wide. There you go. Done. So much better. And basically my point here is it actually seems like Blizzard are thinking a bit more about the player experience. They've basically seemed to have said that like a number of times that the amount of kind of like mandatory feeling content that you'll have to do will be a bit more reasonable. And I think for me, that's something that could just unlock a bunch more of the game to actually be fun. It's something they've really struggled with. So I'm actually feeling pretty darn good about that stuff. And let's just take a quick change of pace for some other nice things. So, art style, level design, right? You know, you've got 5 super distinct feeling zones. Artistically, they are gorgeous, right? Yeah, I mean, the shape language of Bastion's a great example. Just the whole thing. It's really, really nice. Most of them feel like we're going to exciting new places. I mean, Maldraxxus, we kind of seen some of that stuff before, but still, basically, I think it all feels very nice and very different. A nice change from BFA, to be absolutely sure. So, the flow of those levels, really nice. The art style, really nice. You're going to a cool new world. That's something that's super important in an MMO. And yeah, there's a bunch of visuals we haven't really seen before. And I think that stuff is actually quite important for getting people excited. So I think that is a really good thing that I'm excited for, you know, spending 2 years in a new world. Storytelling, another thing. It's more Warlords of Draenor paced, right? That means that you've got these more tight campaigns when you're actually going through the zones. That's actually a really nice thing. So it's more focused on the characters. That works a lot better. And what's nice is that when you then hit endgame and you do the epic Covenant campaign, a lot of that is with the characters who you will have met when you were leveling up in those zones. And that actually means that those characters have got way more room to grow. If you think about, you know, characters like Flynn and Talia in BFA, or, you know, the what was he called? Brother something from Stormsong. You know, those are all characters that could have been way better than they actually were, because they got barely any damn time. But because Blizzard have actually done a pretty good job of having these tight, focused campaign storylines when you are leveling your character up, and then carrying a lot of those characters and themes into the max level Covenant campaigns, that just means those characters can actually be characters we spend time with and get to know. Like, say, Thalyssra. It was quite nice how, you know, we actually got a decent amount of that character through all of that leveling flow. So that's another thing that I'm actually really quite interested in here. Anyway, hopping over from that to some more gameplay-focused stuff, class sets. Now, they're not planned for 9.0, but they are planned to be there afterwards. That's something Ian has said multiple times, so that's a really good thing. I think that the experiment of doing armor-type-based gear just didn't really work in BFA. You know what? Fair enough, totally fine experiment to do, but I'm glad we're going back to class sets. I think that can add some meaningful progression for the characters, and just a new thing to be excited about. Like, I always do remember thinking, cool, what like unique little twang of flavor is my character going to have with, you know, with its 2-piece or 4-piece in this next patch? I think that's something a lot of players actually do get quite excited about. And then when you think about just being in the game for a longer period of time, even during a patch, it can be quite nice to, you know, if you've got a warrior and a paladin, to collect a unique transmog set on either one. That's really satisfying. And also, in the same way you can go back to Legion content now to get a cool transmog set, it actually stands to the game in the future. So, class sets, I'm pretty excited about that. And there's another thing, which I guess could be kind of tied in, and that is PvP gear. Blizzard are giving us vendors for PvP gear, finally. I don't know if you heard how exasperated I had became on this issue. It didn't really impact me that much personally, but it was just like, in principle, the way that PvP gear was now some bizarre planned economy, kind of, was just so absolutely batshit to me. But now they're just saying, hey, yeah, if you do that PvP stuff, you'll get a currency, and you can then go to a vendor and you can spend that currency on what you want. That's very different to their old philosophy of, well, mathematically, there was an ideal way to spend your currency all along. Therefore, we're going to take the choice away from you so that you can do no bad. Totally not understanding that maybe I already have, like, a bit of gear in that slot, so actually the perfectly planned version of this doesn't fit where my character is. So it's very good they've changed in that, and the reason why I'm bringing it up in this video is because it's like a philosophy change, and it's them being willing to just sort of give a bit more over to the player in terms of what they want to do. It goes back to that player agency they talked about so much in the BlizzCon that, you know, actually announced this expansion. So I think that's really good. And it actually brings me on to another tangentially related thing, and that is the weekly chest. Now, me being excited about the weekly disappointment box is quite a strange thing because, to be honest, I never gave a damn about the thing. You know, gear to me, by the time we hit Legion, I cared so little about gear because it was all just, woo, random, who knows, who cares? I just did not give a damn about gear because I was so apathetic because, you know, I could see all the systems and I could see everything they were trying to do with them. I was just like, oh, this is not why I'm here. So it's a bit weird that I'm now thinking, oh, that weekly chest could actually be kind of cool. So basically, the weekly chest is taking into account, it seems like, a lot more of your activities. It's then giving you a broader choice of items when you actually open that chest. So it's not just like you'll get the same, bracers you've got 3 weeks in a row that you're not particularly pleased about. No, it's going to give you an array of items. And if there's nothing there that you like, then it's actually just going to give you some sort of currency that will be useful to you. So basically, there's a system there where, look, there is this thing where I understand the weekly chest is there to be this big juicy carrot, right? I kind of get that, and maybe it's not the most ideal thing for the game in my view, but if it is going to be there, I'd rather there be actually a good version of it. And I think this is infinitely better than BFA's. Infinitely so. I don't think it's going to be called the weekly disappointment box if it's giving you, say, 4 or 6 choices of gear out of it, and also if you don't want any of those, is giving you some sort of fallback currency. I can see it sometimes being a disappointment box, but I don't really think I can see it being more of a disappointment box than not. And certainly in BFA, it seemed like it was just more disappointing than anything. So I'm very happy to see they've actually thought a little bit more about perhaps the psychological experience of how that box is interacting with players and are, taking some steps to actually make it a little bit better. Just a little bit better. It's actually, I would say, infinitely better and fundamentally better than it was in BFA. And next we've got something that is totally miscellaneous, but hey, we got to stuff in this video somewhere. Just UI improvements, There's the 3D trackers, like little dots that are sort of there in your UI now, which makes it a little bit nicer if you're going to go to some mysterious cave and, you don't really know where it is. So I thought that was pretty cool. The story recap thing, right? You hit the map key and it'll actually give you a recap of where you've, sort of where you've been so far in the story. And I know a lot of people will see that and think, oh, wow, really? We need a recap? Look, most of the player base doesn't read quest text. Half of them are, playing the game half cut anyway. So maybe not half, but just the idea that, a player who is not going to normally know the lore can just hit a button and know where the story is so far. Look, I think that's just going to be useful at actually getting more people invested in the stories. I think that's a really good thing for the health of the game, so I like that. There's then the new quest markers, and it's such a small thing that if something is a main campaign quest, it's got its own different marker. But I actually think psychologically, in terms of how you process that information, it's really important. And also, I really noticed as just that, like, when I was going through a zone, and if I wanted just that really tight experience that was really narratively focused, and I maybe just didn't want to do side quests, having the new quest markers actually meant that I could, instead of intuiting that, oh, this is obviously a side quest, I could just only pick up the campaign quests and just have this really nicely paced narrative. I really liked that. And basically, there's just a bunch of small things like this that, as experienced players, we're not going to notice that much or really care a massive amount about. And hell, newer players probably aren't going to notice anyway because they're new, so they won't have known that it was different. But I think having more modern UX, that's kind of user experience, and UX is a really big field, but having slightly more modern UX, that is something that's really important for matching the expectations of potential new players and making the game not feel super archaic. So if those new players see, oh, the UI is just quite nice, right? Our character creation is quite a bit better. Even though they don't know that it wasn't as good beforehand, it's just going to feel better to them. And I think that is actually really important. Again, like I was talking about earlier at the top of this video, building the foundation strong. I think better UX and then, better leveling and new player experience are all super, super important, but they're the sort of thing that don't really matter to the existing player base. So it's that thing where what you need to do is cater to the existing player base, but you sometimes really should do is work on some of your foundations and ensure that they're good. I think Blizzard maybe neglected some of those foundations for quite a bit of time, and it's nice to see they're actually making good moves, just basically in that entire area. And let's totally move away from that to lore. One thing I'm excited about, a clear villain, right? The jailer, he's our main man. There's going to be a mystery as to what the hell he wants, how he's going to be achieving his goals, how Sylvanas plugs into all of that, how Muzala plugs in. But you know what? We know who the final boss is. We kind of know where we're going. We don't know how we're going to get there, so it will be an exciting journey. But you know what? After BFA, I am really, really happy about that. Because BFA was listless, it was directionless. We were, faction war here. That, like Battle for Azeroth meant this, and then it meant that, then it meant that. But they never really did a good job of tying those things together. You've got all these characters, not enough time for any of them to breathe, which I think just basically meant that, BFA was a big cluster. Can't get the channel demonetized, obviously, but it was a bit of a, cluster of an expansion, let's just say, when it came to the narrative, right? It was so messy, and it probably blew through like 2 expansions worth of lore because it just raced through it so damn fast, which was really disappointing to me. So actually seeing that we could get a more tight experience, that's great. If I think about Wrath of the Lich King, there's a lot of people, and even Blizzard, maybe Blizzard just listened to the wrong criticism here. I would maybe say, I don't think it was a big problem. They just saw Arthas a bunch. I really don't. Yeah, sometimes it was a bit Scooby-Doo or whatever, but it's World of Warcraft. Come on, it's not the most high and mighty serious thing in the universe. It's totally fine to have a bit of a conniving villain that we see quite a bit. I think that's actually good. The player's more oriented in their sort of experience, right? All their stuff's more contextualized because they clearly know who the big bad guy is instead of just, ooh, mystery that you've got to go and read on YouTube and Wowhead, which is kind of what BFA was. So I actually think for the vast majority of the player base, this is going to work a bit better. A little bit like how in Legion, when it was just, yeah, you know, Burning Legion bad, Argus bad, Argus has a scythe, his spell is called End All of Creation. We need to stop that. It's not super complex, but it's like simple and it works as the backdrop of an MMO and helps you do some world building. So actually that stuff's potentially way stronger here. It might be in some ways less satisfying for maybe some of the creative team. I really felt like a lot of the creative team in BFA was trying to stuff in like as much as they could, like little bits they cared about, but I just think they, you know, put in too much and didn't really get to do any of it as good as it could have been. So I'm actually really excited for just a more, I would say, considered and directioned experience. I know those are probably not the ideal words, but you get my point. Now let's move on to another side of that, and that is the lore, okay? We're getting into more of that, Cosmos stuff, right? And I think that's really exciting. You know, on this channel, we've always loved that, all this crazy stuff. I mean, if you've seen the alpha spoilers, I'd just say this. What's up with the being that's found in that Maldraxxus dungeon? That's a bit weird. What's the nature of the first ones? How do we deal with all those things Ian said to me in the interview? Shadowlands basically, right, it's introducing a host of new mysteries to keep us occupied. It's actually trying to create and expand the mythos in the way that Warcraft, you know, the original Warcrafts did. They had this mythos, vanilla expanded on that a bit, and then we just kind of chewed through it, and we didn't do a massive amount of expanding upon it. And then Blizzard clearly realized we need to start expanding things so we've got somewhere to go. And I know that a lot of that is kind of driven by the production constraints and demands of the game because you've got to go to somewhere in your new expansion. But for me, it just feels like we're on this kind of new era of things being recontextualized and big new discoveries. And it could go badly, right? It could be that thing where the mystery is more fun as a mystery and then it's explained and it's not satisfying. So I totally acknowledge that that is a thing. But if Blizzard can do that in a light touch way, where it still feels like we're in this mythical world where we're still dwarfed by the sort of scale of what's going on, if they can actually do that, then it could be quite interesting and quite excited. Certainly I know I am very likely to be reading a lot of quest text and to really be going deep into the lore that I find because there are so many mysteries that we are following right now that could be really big, that will be really big, that they've basically told us will be a sort of the direction of where they're going. So to me, I'm interested in, as I said earlier in this video, the campaigns, the like moment-to-moment storytelling is way better. And then in terms of plot structure of this expansion, it's very much focused on the jailer. He's our big villain. Sylvanas is said to sort of unmask and tell us what she's actually all about pretty soon on. I think that that actually could just be a nice, simple, well-done story that has nice implications and nice expansions on the lore. And then on the lore, I'm interested in those expansions. And that's why I'm actually feeling pretty good about the lore. I just really hope that they don't go down the whole route of, yes, Sylvanas, so now as storytellers, we need to justify that genocide she did. Yup, she burnt that tree full of civilians for a good cause. I mean, I get that villains should be the hero of their own story, absolutely, but I just say, Blizzard, proceed with caution on that one. Anyway, with that said, let's hop over a little bit more to class stuff. So, the unpruning, while it is not perfect, I think it does offer quite a bit. There's just a bit more flavor for some of the classes. I think that's really good. And then it also allows for something that I really think is important. That is epic hybrid moments. Now, not everyone will be able to do this, but paladins, with the amount of unpruning and stuff being baselined across all the specs that paladins have, I just think there's this potential for epic moments where a paladin is able to use like all of the little things they can to just eke out a victory, you know? Just keep the raid alive somehow, miraculously, by 5 more seconds that allows like one of the DPS to do the final few 100k damage to the boss. I mean, I'm sure we've all had times like that. I remember way back, you know, being a hunter in, the Blackwing Descent, and you know, me and the other hunter ping-ponging the boss, and we got like the final few percent, and then everyone was cheering, and that's still a moment that I remember so vividly in the game, and it was facilitated by those class mechanics. And now because of the unpruning, there are like more opportunities for that to happen, and that is something that I really am quite excited about. And then moving away from the class stuff, Torghast, I'm also super excited about that. Look, at its base level, it's super fun. It's a game in a game. That's really cool. It's another activity you can do. And trust me, right, where, you know, you got the island expeditions and you're like, oh my god, I've got to do island expeditions. The actual gameplay of doing Torghast is fun, unlike those. You're getting crazy powerful. You're going kind of fast. It's fun. I mean, yeah, sometimes it can just be a bit silly, but fundamentally, it is so much stronger than those bloody island expeditions or those warfronts. Blizzard made a big risk with the island expeditions and the warfronts. Didn't work out. Here, they've taken that, you know, big enough risk, but they've actually made something really fun. They've taken the right inspirations from other parts of the industry, and they seemingly so far have successfully put it into World of Warcraft, and that's pretty cool. And they seem to be interested in continually updating it throughout the expansion. They've talked about, you know, different modes, things like pre-seeded floors, leaderboards. I think it's really cool. And also, you know, not needing keys to enter, the torment system being axed, Blizzard listened there, and I'll tell you what, I think they could be onto a real winner with Torghast. That's another reason why I'm excited. And let's talk about another thing that happens within Torghast, and that is Legos. Yes, oh my god, the legendaries are so good now. I mean, okay, they're probably not going to be ideal. I'm sure we'll find some issues when they come out, but look, the Legion ones, they were fun. Acquisition absolutely sucked. Oh, imagine, I'm not even going to get into that, but it sucked in Legion. Here, though, it's so much better. Your effect recipes, your legendary effects, they're account-wide. You can customize the effect into different bits of gear. And there's some restrictions there, but still. Secondary stats, you can customize those. And then also, because of how it actually works, what you'll end up doing is slowly unlocking an epic-looking transmog set. And there's 4 of them to get, 1 for each armor type. It is infinitely better than Legion. Infinitely. And I think that means it's, I don't know, double infinitely better than BFA. That probably doesn't make much sense, but you know what I mean. It completely creams what they've done before. It's, in principle, it is so much better. Makes me really hope that the Covenant abilities don't F the whole thing up, but the legendaries are infinitely better, and for me, they are genuinely a reason to be excited. And I can say this, in principle, if I have my 4 characters, 1 for each Covenant, and, you know, I'm slowly unlocking my legendaries for all of them, I'm excited by that. That is a thing I would want to log in and keep on doing every week. That's something that the games really struggle to give me because I've just been caught in this RNG apathy soup. Not this, and that's really a good reason to be excited. Okay, next, professions, and yes, I have done a wardrobe change because Blizzard just sent me a t-shirt for being that digital summit, which given the title of this video, does look a little bit suspect, so don't worry, you know, I'll wear this t-shirt in the video where I deeply criticize the game as well. Okay, professions. This is another one I'm really excited about. You know, back in the day, I was loving professions, watching Thagoras, I was watching Elvine, which obviously turned out to be a bit awkward. But, you know, I love professions. I love my gold making, meta gems, maybe hoodwinking people with the gambling cards. That's a bit of a dark time. Let's not talk about that. But yeah, professions. I love professions fundamentally, but then, you know, from WoD onwards, they really started to go bad for me. Even the, you know, the motes of harmony and stuff in MOP that were BOP. Those really made me pretty sad because no longer could I be this crazy, you know, industry machine, which is one of the things I love. So look, I can't guarantee that this stuff's all going to be perfect in the next expansion, but there's one thing I really liked. I was talking to Ian in that interview, and if you have listened to that, you'll know what I mean. He basically said, look, profession stuff, it hasn't mattered this much at Endgame since TBC. And that was him talking about the professions being integrated with the legendaries, where the professions kind of make the base components of the Legos. I think that's really, really nice. And it means that a whole bunch of the professions will actually bloody matter for quite a bit of the expansion. And then also there's things like, you know, there's weapon oils. Weapon oils! Do we need weapon oils in the game? No, absolutely not. But is it kind of cool that there's like flavorful things there that are just relevant for professions that make sense in this fantasy world? Yes, absolutely. So we might actually be getting a few more of those old school things. This is definitely something, look, we need to do another deep dive into, but from what I've seen so far, from what we've covered in our very first Professions video ages ago, from what Ian has said, basically I'm a bit more excited about Professions. And, you know, for me, right, World of Warcraft, it's not Destiny 2. It's not just about doing my small number of weeklies and whatever to get the most powerful gear sources in the game ticked off a list. For me, it was a little bit of that, but then it was also doing some Professions, you know, going back and doing Netherwing or Scatus or, you know, stuff like that. I've never actually finished Scatus, but I did for Netherwing. It was always, you know, things like that. And Professions actually mattering, I think, will sort of unlock this new type of gameplay for me again. I totally admit I could do those things now, I could do Professions now, but it just seems like things are moving in a better direction, and that's pretty darn exciting. Then next, there's another thing that really is in that same sort of vein as well, and that is there's cosmetics to work on, right? Like, you've got your Covenant Renown. You build that up in your characters, you got a bunch of cool stuff. You've got your Covenant mini-games, right? Look, I mean, the Court of Shadows are not the party one, not a big fan, personally speaking anyway, but the Boss Rush one, absolutely love. The Winter Queen's Conservatory, the farming minigame, love that. Those things have all got like cosmetics and nice little things to unlock. I think that's great. You know what it is as well, because of course you've got the mounts for your Covenant, you've got the, you've got like the mounts, there's the armor sets and stuff like that. And the cloaks, the backs as well. What's really good about those, right? The thing is, you can just sort of unlock those at your own pace on whatever characters you have. Remember how you could do that in Legion? You could get your Order Hall set, you could get your different tints for your different artifact weapons, you could unlock and collect your different artifact weapons. It kind of gave you, like, stuff to do. It tapped into that, well, this in Shadowlands will tap into that whole, like, oh, I'm bored, what do I do? Oh yeah, I could work on my class mount, I could work on my artifact skins. Yeah, finally, that is actually back in the game. And I think the way that they sort of took a holiday from that entire, like, axis of gameplay in BFA really hurt them. I think they understand that now. And it's also something that will really stand well to the future of the game because in, say, 11.0, if you're a new player or whatever, you can be like, oh, cool, yeah, well, look at all that cool armor. I can go back and do that in a, downtime period in the game. So I think all that stuff's just really good. And just the idea that I can have things I will want to work on a bit more that are not just power, that are not just rolling for a better Titan Forge or a better corruption, that is really exciting to me. And then in a similar vein, there is the customization as well, right? Like the character ones. Just in your character can be so much more representative of what's actually there in the Warcraft world. All the different troll tribes, Wildhammer dwarves, loads more styles of elves, and then when you actually get into it, loads of jewels for the blood elves, different horns and tails for the Draenei, more faces, more eyes, more hair, more tattoos, more jewelry. If you're a night elf, you can have flowers in your hair and just all that stuff. It's great. There's more everything. That's really nice. I think that just makes World of Warcraft a better RPG. Yes, you cannot log in and play a hairstyle, but that's not really the point. Not every single thing has got to be some sort of gameplay-driven feature with a really clear, like, oh, I can see how the players would get really invested in this and spend a bunch of time. There's also those things that just work because it's a damn RPG, and it's nice to see those actually be, well, done by Blizzard. Okay, another point that sort of ties into this stuff. Alt excitement, okay? This is something I've not had in a long time. Certainly in BFA, there is not a thing I wanted to do less than an alt, okay? In the previous expansion in Legion, I had one of every single class. I wonder why. And I enjoyed that. And I made a whole big series on it. I loved it. Well, there's alt excitement back for me with this expansion. A lot of it's because of how they've done the Covenants. And it's not the Covenant-locked abilities, which, yes, I think is silly, and yes, will be a major point of the worries about Shadowlands video, but it's just the idea. I can roll a new character. On that character, I can have a different flavor of the core storyline, and then a new campaign at the end, and then get a new set of armor, a new mount, a new back upgrade, a new thing to progress through, a new mini game to play. I can be doing my boss rush in Bastion, I'm doing my Winter Queen Conservatory in Ardenweald. That's really nice. I can have different flavors of those zones because I've sort of went into each Covenant on all my different alts. That just means alt excitement. So the fact that that exists, and then we got the better Legos, we got the various different catch-up systems, to me, I just think that means that instead of being just being sort of nudged towards playing just my one class till absolute exhaustion, just trying to crank that RNG wheel all the time to get your Titan Forges and get your corruptions and all of that stuff. Instead of just tunneling into the more boring parts of the game in a single character, I feel like I can now have a more balanced experience in a higher number of alts and see more of the content and see more of the game. And that to me is actually exciting. So there you go. Another reason why I'm excited. There is another one, which, you know, I'm just kind of putting in here because it just seemed right, even though it's not a major thing. The potion change. It's a bit of a nerf for Dungeoneers, yes, but mainly a raider, so sorry. But potions now just have a 5-minute timer. This means you can pre-pot, as you sort of do now, but, you know, it's not like you're going to miss being in combat and then be locked out of your potion. I thought that was actually quite a nice little change. I know it's a really small thing, but I actually really liked it when I saw it. Now, could there be downsides? Yes, but I think this is just another example of Blizzard kind of going in, having a bit of a think about the game, and actually, you know, sometimes they do these things in a very draconian way that doesn't work. So I'm actually just a bit surprised that they've done it in a way that seems like it could be successful. Okay, small thing on potions. Let's do a big thing, the Maw. The Maw seems really cool. Blizzard even indicated they want to update it with future patches. That's pretty cool. I mean, the Maw, it's kind of like having a, you know, a 0.1 sort of patch zone just in the game at launch, so that's nice. Then I think about the mobs that we saw there when we were on the event realm, and then I think about the higher rises of the Timeless Isle. The Timeless Isle was a real sticky place. I think in a way that you can only really sort of grasp an experience if you're there at the time and you're sort of playing the game in a certain way, but certainly for me, I got into more of a flow state when I was sort of fighting those enemies that actually had these very simple but clear mechanics that you had to pay attention to. I think the idea of there being a more dangerous version of that in the form of the Maw that then could be updated over time along with Torghast, I just think that's really strong. And I think, again, it's like another little vector of different gameplay because you can dabble in a bit of Torghast, bit of the Maw, bit of your regular world quest stuff, bit of your Covenant progression, bit of your dungeons. It just feels like the sort of the situation may be that you just have a bit more flexibility and just kind of have, like, you know, reasonable sized portions of a bunch of stuff to do on maybe a few characters if you want to do it like that. And that's quite nice to me. And then I guess we get to our final point, which, you know, I'm going to say it anyway. The original title for this and my, like, outline for this video was less of an abusive relationship. But you know what? Maybe I should just tone that down slightly. My point was, in World of Warcraft, it's like you turn up, you're all, you know, plucky and excited, and you do your stuff, and then the game just punches you in the face. It just slaps you down. Because it's like, yeah, you know, oh, didn't get the corruption I wanted, or, oh, I got a weapon that I don't need, but the other demon hunter in my guild, you know, would like that, but because of the Master Loot system, I can't give them that weapon. Oh, wait, that's still a problem in this next expansion. Fix it, Blizz. Come on, be common sense, please. But, okay, bad example. I'm still pissed about that. But broadly speaking, I think the RNG stuff being toned down, hopefully there being, you know, lessons learned from things like, you know, from things like the, just like the corruptions and the Titan forging. Just feels like the game's going to be less fighting you every step of the way. Like, is it not insane that we were kind of cheering whenever Ian said, yeah, you can do Torghast as much as you want. We're not going to get in your way. The idea that, like, Blizzard getting in the way of us playing their game, that was a thing, was quite weird, wasn't it? But that's what we became used to. Blizzard had problem solved, like, so much of your agency away, right? Because it's like some, you know, Rehoboam stuff from, like, Westworld season 3 or 4, whatever it was, or 3, yeah, where it's like, oh, this person is deviating from the plan. Can't do that. They might progress too fast. They might do this. They might do the thing wrong. Oh, what if they buy their PvP gear in the wrong order? The universe would collapse. There's just less of that bullshit going on, it seems. And I know that this is a real snarky thing to include in my list of reasons why I'm excited about the game, while I'm literally wearing a t-shirt that they just sent me for being in that summit. But I think Blizzard understand it. You know, they know what the crowd cheered at them for at BlizzCon. It was almost all them being like, you know that thing we did? We've stopped doing it that way. We know you were pissed off, so we're actually doing the common sense thing. That's what people were excited by. So it actually seems like they might have learned their lessons there. Now, I don't want to count my chickens before they roost, count the eggs before they've, I don't know, You know what I mean, right? I don't want to do that, but it sounds like things are better. Just going through what I've covered in this video, the endgame system seems to be a bit more open-ended. I mean, obviously, there's going to be the video of worries, and as I said, I'm worried about those things purely because I'm excited about these things, right? It's like I'm excited about these things, and the reason why I'm worried is because I'm actually worried about losing the excitement of these things because I don't want Blizzard to then sort of, just, if the boat is a ship, just pull a plank, out of the hull underneath the waterline for no good reason, just have the whole ship sink for no good reason. I'm definitely worried about those, but just generally, it seems like the devs are a bit more open, and it seems like we'll be fighting the game we're trying to enjoy less. Yes, it sounds insane that I'm saying those things, but that does actually seem to be how it feels, so it's probably the most backhanded compliment I've ever given. I know I sound like a total dick when I say that, but I think you know what I mean if you were playing BFA. And, look, the glass shattered for me with BFA like 3 days in, and it kind of sucked, and I was really unhappy about it. And I then came back properly, like a little bit for 8.2, but properly for 8.3, got Curve, Heroic, N'Zoth, which was really just what I wanted to do. And even in that, I felt like I was fighting Blizzard the entire way. It's like, I just want to enjoy these horrific visions. I just want to raid. And the game was constantly being like, aha, have you considered this? And, oh, you need to do this first. And, it's all, the balance is totally destroyed and nothing makes sense. It just feels like we'll be doing less of that. Hopefully that's the case. Hopefully that is the case. But I think you can understand why, it's seeming like there's being less of that is just something that's a bit exciting. Being in World of Warcraft for a very long time has been a weird experience, I suppose, because it just feels like it's been this wacky ride of how do the devs actually want us to play their game? Who the hell knows? And it just sort of changed all the time. It just seems like maybe they're trying to think a bit more player-focused. Almost a bit less dev-focused and problem-focused, and maybe a bit more just, let's let the people do what they want. Of course, Covenant ability swapping. We'll get onto that later. But I think you understand for this video the core reasons why I'm actually excited for this expansion. And, we've ended up doing just so many, like lore videos that are tightly scripted and little feature showcases here and there and things like that. But, what I actually haven't really done that much is just sit down and run my mouth for however long it takes to talk about what I think in more of an unscripted, just sort of raw fashion. So, yeah, that's what I think. I hope you've enjoyed this video podcast thing, maybe. Whatever. Stay tuned for the one in my worries. That might be a bit spicy. I know a whole bunch of you like spice, so we'll do that. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you do think. Are you excited? Are you not excited? Are you in this situation that I'm in where you're excited and the reasons why you're worried are actually because you're excited and you just got a bit of fear that a bit of it could go wrong, because that's where I'm at. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.